Okay, now it's time for our local panel discussion here in Dallas. We have quite a distinguished group of executives sitting here or over there today, and I'd like to introduce them to you. First is Sharon Patrick, whom you've already met, President and Chief Operating Officer of Martha Stewart Living Omnimedia. Welcome back to the stage, Sharon. We also have Don Soderquist, Senior Vice Chairman of Walmart Stores Incorporated, and Mark Cuban, co-founder of Broadcast.com and now a Vice President at Yahoo, which recently purchased Broadcast.com and brought in Mark to run Yahoo Broadcast Services. And finally, please also welcome Bill Doolittle, Executive Vice President of Sales for Kinko's. Okay, welcome all. We're going to get started just as soon as I get over there. You all on the way get to see my little Energizer bunny pack. Keeps me going. Hi. I have some questions, and I really think we want to hear from all of you on these questions, you know. For example, you have exercised leadership to get where you are today, and I want to ask each one of you if there's any one thing that we've heard in the program thus far that strikes you as an essential aspect of leadership. Who wants to start? Sharon, we'll just go down the row.
I think we hear it: passion, 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 commitment, 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 belief, belief, belief. But at the center is the leader. And the leader, if there's that passionate belief, can really lead. And that's as much heart as expert power as a clear vision. But that's what people really, in my experience, respond to. And that's what keeps them going, and that's what keeps them learning and growing. And in that sense, they'll forgive you anything if they are clear about the result and you've really been able to communicate to them that belief in it.
Okay, passion. Who wants to go at it next? Don?
Then I'll go next if I can use two.
Sure.
Thank you. First of all, I think Tom Peters impressed on me the fact that a leader has to feel inside of himself, I want to make a difference. You have to believe that you can make a difference, and you have to have that passion that you can make a difference and you will make a difference. The second part was what Margaret Wheatley shared with us about a real leader. Her definition of a real leader is someone who has more faith in us than we have in ourselves and invites us on a continuing basis to participate. I think those two kind of sum it up in my mind as far as the most important elements I heard today.
So that I don't just make this a test on if you've been paying attention all day, let me also ask you, what part of leadership have you learned from your own experience of what's important in leading?
Well, there's a number of things, and that is, first of all, as a leader, you have to know where you want to go. Where are we going? What is the vision? What is the mission, and how are we going to get there? And I think that's extremely important. I do think the issue of, once you know where it is you're going, a plan to get there. How are you going to get there? And then we have to remember as leaders that leadership is for the benefit of the followers, not for the benefit of the leaders. And sometimes we get that mixed up, and we think of the leadership is for self-interest and the rest of it. And I'll tell you, leaders must be able to take that vision that they have, paint a picture in the minds of people, and then help them be motivated to get to and accomplish the vision. A leader must understand he or she cannot do it by themselves.
Okay, Mark?
I agree 100%. I think where I try to extend it is to also lead by example. I wanted to make it clear to everybody in our organization that there is nothing that I would ask them to do that either A, I hadn't already done, or wouldn't be willing to do myself. I think people want to know, particularly in a startup and a quickly growing organization like ours has been on the internet, that because we're always facing new challenges, because there's always something new around the corner, that the people at the top have got to be just as willing to do everything that they ask their folks to do as the folks themselves. And I think once people see that, they become attached to it, and they realize that you're part of the team. We're all in this together, and together we can move forward a lot faster than any competition and excel and reach our objectives.
Okay, Bill?
Well, I think top performing sales organizations, top performing any organization, generally has to have a way to measure success. And one of the things we've implemented that a lot of top organizations have implemented is taking a look at that through a balanced scorecard and saying if you drive financial results, that's fine. But some of the key ingredients behind that have to be how you take care of your coworkers and how you take care of your customers. On the coworker side, I think that, it's a coworker-centric model that says, what am I doing to make sure that absolutely every one of you, every moment that I speak with you, believes that you are my only coworker, that you are my only customer. And that means doing things with people and not to people. You've probably heard that before. Because the more involved you get people, the more buy-in, the more equity they have in that relationship. And I think we've heard that consistently all morning this morning. So again, I would suggest that doing things with people is going to get you tremendous more traction, with your coworkers and build long-term relationships. So it's a coworker-centric model. And that drives the financial results and the success with your customers.
I like that. Okay. I'm probably not going to go down the line this time because it just feels silly. What do you consider the major challenges that you and other leaders in your organization face at this time? So, Don, we'll start with you.
Well, I agree with Tom Peters. Doesn't he push us? He pushes our envelope right to the very edge, doesn't he? With his passion and the whole idea of change. I think one of the greatest challenges that all leadership faces today is, what do you change? Where do you change? How far do you go? I tell you what, it's one thing to say, you better change, and it's better to fail trying to change than mediocre success. But I will tell you, you might lose your job too. And so what you have to do is clearly assess the risk that's involved in the change and be real careful in how you change. I think that's extremely important, and I think that's a challenge that all of us in business face. There's several others, and you can say technology. As we've been introduced this morning or has been shared with us, the incredible change in technology, my friend here, and what he's forcing all of us to do, to look at in a different way. Man, that presents an incredible challenge to us. But we have to look at the other side of it, and that is, what opportunities exist for us today because of technology? You can look at the global issue, and say globalization of competition and the rest of it. They present enormous challenges as well. But I think how do you deal with this change? How do you initiate the change? And I kind of look at it like this. You got to have one hand grabbing for the clouds, but you also have to have another hand holding onto the grass. Because if you don't, you can get yourself lost, and you can get yourself out into space. But I think that's a hard thing that all of us are facing.
Who wants to go next?
I will.
Sure.
It's sort of a practical thing, and I was introduced to an idea, and it's really about leadership style, and leadership style on a day-to-day basis being a lot about judging the skill of the people that you're working with, because to be really good, you have to multiply yourself, so you have to really work through others to get more and more done, or you won't sort of accomplish that dream. And this was a very good way, I thought, of thinking about the skills of the person that you're depending on, and as a leader, what you should do for them. And it sort of works like this. You really think about the task at hand, the person you've got, and their willingness and ability to do the job. Because if they're a winner, you're a winner. And if they're unable and unwilling to do the job, basically you have to sit there and direct them. And if you leave the room, everybody's going to fail. And you have to sort of know if a person's in that position. The next step up is you might be working with somebody that's willing to do it but unable. And then you really need to be prepared to teach them. So you're already having to sort of adopt different leadership styles and be sort of clear with what needs to be done and who you've got. Finally, you've got a person that might be able to do it but's unwilling, and then you have to develop your persuasion skills. And finally, if they're willing and able to do it, you just should give it to them and let them go. And I've learned over the years the biggest mistake we all make is when you have somebody to whom you can delegate, the worst thing you can do to them is then bring it back and take it away, which is hand it out, delegate it, let them come back, and then really cheer their success. So what I've found, if you can sort of figure out who you're working with and how it is you can support them, and they're successful in those tasks, then you're really going to get somewhere.
Bill, what are the greatest challenges you and the other leaders in your company see? in front of you.
I'm going to go back, Linda, to the coworker-centric model here and say that I think the challenge to all of you, just like it's been with us, and I think to all business leaders, is how do we create a learning organization? We can talk about being fast and nimble and quick to the market and dealing with technology changes, but there's a lot of change out there that's constant. One of my coworkers suggested recently, or asked, when is this fire drill going to end? And I quickly looked around and said, never. It's not going to end. It's a constant. So if that's true, how do I create a learning organization that allows me to really, probably one of the most competitive employment markets that we've seen since post-Vietnam War days? How do I attract the type of talent that's going to help us get to the next level and retain that talent? So it's not just what I offer folks as a value proposition to come to work, let's say for Kinko's, and develop a learning organization around those folks, but how do I enhance that all the time to continue to motivate them, because it's coworkers that are going to get me and the whole organization to the next level of success.
Mark.
How I would phrase it or position it, for us, the biggest challenge at broadcast has been culture. Because what happens in an organization, we always looked at ourselves like a speeding bullet train that continued to speed up. And the good news is, as you got faster, there were people who hung on, stood on, and got stronger along with you and faster with you. But unfortunately, there were people who fell off the train. And as an organization moving fast, you couldn't always touch those people who fell off or people who were jumping on as new employees as directly as you'd like to. And so what happens, the culture of the organization takes over. So that people throughout the organization are driven, focused, passionate about what they do, then as new people come in, those qualities rub off. You can't help but be absorbed. And when you look at successful internet companies, you see a lot of that same traits. There's, at Amazon, people are trance-like in their commitment to the Amazon way. At broadcasting, at Yahoo, we're the same way. And it's a real challenge because the bigger you get, the more traditional things tend to happen. Office politics start to take place, little trivial issues. People try to build empires. And so it's really a challenge just to batten down the hatch and really force the culture throughout the organization, because I think when it's all said and done, as much as individuals try to be leaders, it's the organization itself that has to lead.
In other words, the culture can't change. Everything that we do changes. Right. You got to hold on to the culture that you've had and not lose it. If you lose it, then you lose what made you successful in the past.
Exactly.
I think we all learn from, if we're lucky, we learn from our own mistakes. I keep telling my daughter, why can't you learn from my mistakes? It'll take you years to learn from your own. But that doesn't seem to work. And I want to ask you then, in the light of that, to talk about some leadership challenge you have faced in the past and how you dealt with it. And you can choose whether you choose something, whether you dealt with it really successfully or whether you did the wrong thing and learned from that. Who wants to go on that one? Bill?
Yeah, thanks, Linda. I think it's a continuing challenge. I think the challenge to listen to again, coworkers, the marketplace, just the challenge to listen all the time. In the speed and the rush we're in today that we heard a lot about this morning, to the ever-demanding time around voicemail and email and telephone calls and inboxes, there tends to be some communications overload. And I think as a result, we start to focus on checking off that task, getting that done. And sometimes in an effort to get that done, to get through the day, we sometimes forget to listen as much as we can. And I know that I challenge myself on that all the time.
Is there a particular incident in the past that's been a leadership challenge for you?
Well, I'm going to go back to the coworkers, and if there's a theme here this morning I'm sharing with everybody, it's going to center on the coworkers. I think the particular challenge is that I can't afford the cost for hiring the wrong person or not retaining the right people is extremely high. Extremely high when you measure that against the return to the organization and the impact that has on an organization. And I think when we don't listen, we don't allow people to participate, we don't do those things with people, and I'm concerned that I try to listen with 10 ears and half a mouth sometimes if I can.
That's a good way to look at it. Don, how about you? Is there some leadership challenge in your past that you'd like to share with us?
I have a lot of mistakes that I could share, but I prefer not to in front of this big an audience. But I can think of a situation that we had to cope with and deal with in our company that was potentially very traumatic. Well, it was traumatic, and that is the culture of our company is, as you put it, is incredibly important. And I like to think of it as it's the mortar between the bricks. that has spelled our success. It is our people that have made the difference. There's no doubt about it. But it was led by a visionary man called Sam Walton. And probably one of the largest challenges that I've ever faced and we as a company have ever faced is when Sam Walton passed away. Wow, change in leadership. There were a lot who predicted our doom because Sam was the one that held it all together. But I'll tell you what, in his wisdom, we were a family, we were a team. And because all the principles that he believed in had been shared on a continuous basis through our culture with all of us people, that actually Sam Walton passed away bodily, but Sam Walton is still here. Not memorialized, if you will, but the principles that he taught us. And so what our challenge really was to make sure we didn't stray. Just keep the course straight and not stray from those things that had made us strong in the past. I remember Ray Kroc one time said, we need to continue to operate just like we did when we were poor. And I think that's pretty terrific, because that's what we continue to remind ourselves. Let's not forget where we came from. Let's not forget our heritage. Let's not forget what Sam Walton taught us. Sam Walton's still alive today, because he shared these timeless principles that have been, woven into our culture, that have made us who we are today. So what I would say, that's one of the biggest changes and challenges we face.
Sharon, I want to hear from you on some leadership challenge that you have faced or your organization has faced, but I obviously have to ask the question that Don has brought up here. What would happen to Martha Stewart living Omnimedia if, God forbid, something happened to Martha Stewart?
Well, we'd all be sad. We think about that a lot. Martha thinks about that a lot. I mean, this is exactly taking off on Sam Walton. I think that Martha's great success as a leader is the fact that her vision is clear and her commitment is unqualified, and the standards of perfection are understood by all, and they're trusted and respected. And that's inculcated in the organization, well taught, driven from the center, with 160 creatives and 400 people behind, really every day churning out those ideas as I showed you. I mean, this is a serious question. The magazines and the merchandise is all under long-term contracts and basically doesn't need Martha's presence to sell it. That information and those ideas are what sparkle. Television, as you know, would be a problem. And what we're trying to do is bring forward all those expert leaders behind Martha now that we have these media platforms, so that you'll know them better and they, in their particular areas, can take over and gain the kind of recognition that Martha has gained. I mean, there'll only be one Martha. She's the only one that can do it all. But behind her, we do have the nation's second best gardener and second best cook, named Susan Spungen, by the way. And I think that that's what you're talking about. And that's the challenge for us, and that's the challenge to Martha, which is this whole idea of how you multiply yourself, which, while I may not have articulated it very well, it really is. If you can build these skills in other people, and they can go out and they can distinguish themselves at similar levels of performance, that's when you can really make these big differences we're talking about. I think that as single visionaries, it goes only too far. You really have to populate an organization that's able to carry it on.
What about some leadership challenge you all have already faced along the way, particularly in your
I always have
growth?
problems on the following in terms of leadership, and I think a lot about leadership style. I think leadership style is part of the key to these questions, and I think if you look at our panel, you can already begin to see that style shining through. And for me, and I don't mean to bring this up, and I don't really know if it means sort of being of the female persuasion, but there really is a difference between how you approach a situation as cooperative or competitive. And you can go into a transaction, you can go into a lot of things, and you can have the point of view, I win, you lose. And it really becomes a competition to see who prevails in in the competition of life and work life. And then the other point of view is the more cooperative. How can we both win together? And I think for me the challenge is, since I prefer the cooperative style, to not have it perceived as weakness, and to be therefore perceived as having leadership weakness when you're looking for the way to bring it together. So that's not a clear answer. I could give you a lot of examples where how you approach it, whether you choose to fight it or to listen to it, is very important in the outcome. And it's a matter of style again. And I think that's where I have the biggest dilemmas.
Mark, what have been your biggest challenges in leadership?
Mine's a real simple one, but I think it's something you have to rethink every day, and that is never, ever, ever think you're too smart. Every one of us here has tasted some level of success, and like they say, everybody's a genius in a bull market. And the reality is there's some 12-year-old little boy or girl, particularly in the technology space where I'm in, ready to kick your butt. And the minute you think that you've got it set and you're ready just to, kick back and, take a breather for a minute, you're history. There's examples throughout history, as we, move into the new millennium. Back the last millennium, Western Union was the largest company in America. And I'm sure they thought they were going to be set for the next 100 years. And there'll be more examples going forward. But in our world, it applies to myself, and it applies to every single one of our employees. You cannot sit still. You have to refocus. There's new variables being introduced to your business world every single day. And if you aren't making the effort to understand them and acknowledge them and integrate them, you're going to have a problem.
All right, but leaders sometimes have to walk a fine line between making a decision that's not popular, building a consensus, leading. How do you balance these concerns?
I personally don't. I mean, I've been called a dictator. And when you're in a ready, fire, aim mode, that's just the way it goes. I mean, I've made mistakes. I've thought I'm smart sometimes. We've been wrong. At broadcast.com, 80% of our business is in broadcasting events like this. When we first got started, we thought I was going to be doing Muzak as background music for websites, which generated $0 in revenue. So you learn. But in a fast-paced business like ours, making a mistake isn't the problem. Inactivity and sometimes trying to build a consensus is a problem. And so, I'll err on the side of activity and get in the game and learn, realizing that I'm happy to adjust if it was a mistake.
Bill, I notice you nodding your head at some of this.
Well, I think he's absolutely right. And I think that in a fast-moving organization like all of us work in, it's almost paralyzing if you get to a consensus building, in a consensus building mode. And I would suggest to you, in most businesses, if you take a look at the decisions that are made on a day-to-day basis in your organizations, there are very few decisions that are going to be made on a day-to-day basis that are going to financially cripple your business. And if you build an organization that is a learning organization, that means you're going to make a lot of mistakes. So I think building the trust and the confidence and the knowledge and an understanding of how you do make decisions as an organization is probably extremely important in setting expectations within your organization. And once those are set, I think you can move very, very fast. And if people make mistakes, you learn from them and you move on. But again, I've never, in 25 years, I've never seen a situation where a coworker would make a decision once you've outlined expectations for the organization that would financially cripple the business. And you just get so much more traction again with the organization by moving fast that way.
Okay. Don?
Well, I'm not sure that I'm really addressing this same particular area, but I think I'd be remiss if I didn't just add a thought as related to this whole leadership issue. And that is that every single one of us here and everyone listening in really needs to understand that our people can do more than we ask of them. Our people actually see things that we never see. And what our job as leaders is to really believe that in our hearts and in our minds. Someone was talking about, I think it was Bill Gates, we saw in that clip where Bill was talking about muscle power and turning it into brain power. I'd go one step further. I think you got to turn it into heart power. I think you got to get it down in here. This is when you get commitment from people, when you get it into the heart. And the only way you get it into the heart is treating people like you would like to be treated. Make them feel a part of the family. Make them feel a part of the team. Our company is successful for one reason only. It's all the people in the store. See, they're the first line of contact with the customers. They're the ones that make it happen. You know, we've got the easy job, just kind of setting the direction and the rest of it. They're the ones that have to make it work. And you can walk away from here with a list of 10 things that if I do these 10 things, I'm going to be a great leader. If you forget your people, if you don't put the emphasis on people first, you see, our people will not treat our customers any better than we treat them. Absolutely can't happen. And so in this leadership area, we've got to believe in our people. We've got to believe in our heart that they can do more than what we ask them to do. And I would much rather have commitment than compliance. And commitment comes from the heart. It doesn't necessarily come from the mind.
Okay. We're just about to run out of time, but Sharon, I wanted to hear you on this subject of balancing consensus versus making an unpopular decision.
Well, you just have to do what's right.
According to whom?
If you're the leader, after you've heard it all, you've got to just do what you think is right. That's what it means to be a leader.
Okay. I think this has been a good discussion, and I want to thank you all for being here. It's been quite a productive day so far, and we have much more later today, but right now it is time to take our lunch break, and we will see you again in 1 hour.